See you at the equator. Welcome to Primary Technology, the show about the tech news that matters. Lots of news this week. Apple announced dates for WWDC. iOS 18.4 should be coming out next week to the public. Plus, ChatGPT 4.0 now generates even better imagery. Tested that out. OpenAI is about to close a huge funding round. The Meta Tell-All book. And Jason has the Sigma BF camera in hand. We're going to discuss that as well. This episode is exclusively brought to you by you, the members who support us directly, so thank you for that. I'm one of your hosts, Stephen Robles, and joining me with a BF camera and the wrong opinion about the Severance finale is my friend Jason Aiton. How's it going, Jason?
It's good. I mean, the camera's great. So we'll talk about that later, but
we'll talk about the camera later. Yeah, and we can't review the Severance finale. We don't have time for that. But I just know that through our text, I think you have the wrong opinion. I'm just letting you know.
Yeah, well, I have a strong opinion about one particular aspect of it, which is like the ending of the ending. The only part that matters, right? It was good. It was a good finale. It was compelling until they literally took the wrong turn down the wrong hallway.
Well, see that, but okay, no, we're not getting into it. You're not baiting me into this. We'll have to have another podcast, maybe with our friend Nate. We'll talk about that.
Great.
But there is some other Severance news and things on Apple's website that. Well, we'll get to that in a second. But we have a bunch of more 5-star reviews. Thank you for keep trying to getting us back to a 5-star show in Apple Podcasts. I didn't check today if we made it back up to a 5-star podcast.
I did check today, and we are so close, guys. We're 4.9, if you can believe it.
We've been 4.9 for 3 weeks, but yeah, we're 4.9.
Okay.
I don't know how many more we need, but thank you for rating the show across the world. We have Mitch Kuhn from Tampa, which is amazing. He's right up the road from me. Apple Pencil tip towards the volume buttons, battery percentage off, dots on. He knows what's up. Scott K. Podcaster from Canada. Dave from Victoria, British Columbia, Canada, says his oldest tech is a Commodore Amiga 3 1/4 floppy disk based solar calculator. I don't even know what all that is, but it sounds...
That's a lot of words.
It's a lot of words, but it sounds old. Deepak N112 from the USA. Jonah Sachs from the USA, battery percentage on, tip up, mixture there. We both won that one. Hokkaido North Country from Japan. We have listeners all the way in Japan, Jason. That's amazing. Awesome.
Do you translate for that for people?
No, I don't. Actually, there's a Riverside feature that you can now translate, but we won't get into that. But I think his review, I think, was translated, so I'm not sure how that goes, but thank you for that. That's amazing. RSG 526 from the USA, Rainbow Dash 13 from the USA, and Time Pilot 84 from the USA. Thank you for those 5-star reviews. Keep them coming. One day we'll reach 5-star rating again in Apple Podcasts. But speaking of Severance, I want to get back to this behind-the-scenes video that Apple released earlier this week, which is an amazing video. You should watch it. It's just about 11 minutes long, and Apple, it's behind the scenes talking about the editing. Ben Stiller's in it. He's talking with the people who edit it. I guess there was like 3 editors and some assistant editors. But they talk about what they actually use to edit, which is Avid, I believe, the software. Avid Media Composer is what they use to edit it. But the hardware they use to edit it, Apple puts at the very end, Severance is edited on an iMac, Mac Mini, and MacBook Pro. No Mac Studio, no Mac Pro.
Well, there was a Mac Studio in one of the shots, though, I feel like.
There might have been, but at the very end,
was that a Mac Mini? Was that the one you just showed was a Mac Mini then?
It was a Mac Mini, and then at the very end it says Severance is edited on Mac Mini, iMac, and MacBook Pro. That's it.
Which is
and
amazing.
There's this one shot in the marching band scene, which if you haven't seen the finale, no spoilers, but in the marching band scene, the editor was talking about how they had so many cameras capturing so many angles, and there was 9 bins of 9 angles to choose from at times, which would be, my multiplication is
81.
81. It's 81. Yeah, I was about to say 81. And again, Mac Mini, iMac, or MacBook Pro. And I'm over here wondering, do I need an M3 Ultra or an M4 Max Mac Studio? And I don't think I do. I don't think I do, Jason. So
I think the answer is you definitely need a Mac Pro when it comes out.
Mac Pro M4 Extreme.
Well, and the thing that was funny was he made a comment sort of, there was several throwaway lines in that. It was like 19 minutes long. It was fantastic. It was better than the finale. Don't say anything.
No,
Steven.
don't stop doing that. No baiting. Okay, go ahead.
But he said he did. He goes, first of all, he's like, there's 9 banks of 9 and camera shots we can look at. So I'm doing the math in my head. He's like, they're not all running at the same time. Okay, great. That's fine.
Right.
But then he's like, we remote into the Mac Mini where all the footage is. And I'm just like...
They were saying, because the editors were not in the same place all the time. And they said they remoted into a Mac Mini, which, I want to know what software they're using to remote in. If they're just like VNCing, I imagine there's some security there. It also looked like they were editing in just like people's living rooms.
Yeah.
Like did not look like a studio or anything. Like they were just chilling out in a house. So anyway.
I feel really good about this M4 Pro Mac Mini sitting on my desk. I do. It's like we can podcast with 81 people, Stephen, right now.
81 people. I also want to say from our community, social.primarytech.fm, Paul Meyer says he went to a community Severance Pallyfest session where they played the finale with 3,000 people watching. He said it was an amazing experience. Plus, they had a panel with some of the actors afterwards. So I'm sure that was a very cool experience. And also, whoever is doing marketing for Severance specifically at Apple needs multiple raises, because not only did they do the Grand Central Terminal thing, not only have they done amazing on social media. Look what's on Apple's website right now. The Lumon
It's
terminal.
not that it's just on its website. It's one of the tabs of products you can buy. You can't actually buy it, but it's right up there next to the MacBook Air.
What, like, who convinced them to do this? Whoever is in charge of this marketing for Severance, incredible, amazing. Yeah. This is hilarious. So anyway, good. Whoever it is, good on you. We'll also reach out. You can come on the show as a guest. We'd love to talk to you.
That'd be amazing. Yeah. I mean, you never saw a tab that said AFC Richmond up there. You know.
Well, I don't know it's not really a...
Jerseys, man. Jerseys.
Yeah, but Apple doesn't sell other merch, like shirts, you know what I mean? Like
they also don't sell the Lumon Terminal Pro. Let's just be clear.
Fair enough. Anyway, it's amazing that they're doing all that. And the finale was incredible, too. Don't let Jason tell you otherwise. Anyway, other Apple news. I'll just see if Jason interject anything there. Dub was announced. WWDC is scheduled for June 9th, and it's going to be big developer conference, iOS 19, all the updates, June 9 through 13th. So media invites, those aren't out yet, and so I'm crossing my fingers. We will see. We will see how it goes. Apparently, if you are a developer, you can apply and maybe win like a lotto to be there for June 9th, where you'll be like, you can go to the keynote basically. And so I was about to do that, and then I realized my developer account had lapsed. Like, I have not paid for it. And so I didn't do that, and I didn't renew it. So crossing fingers for media invite. We'll see. But, yeah, iOS 19. If we get to it, there's some rumors about the iOS 19 redesign and how it's supposed to be a bunch of stuff. But June 9th, it's happening.
Yeah. Right there at Apple Park.
Apple Park. So this news related happened right after we basically published an episode. I don't know why this keeps happening.
This is what happens on Thursdays. We've actually been strongly considering waiting until 9:30 at night to record this show because everything
That's news
comes out.
to me, but yeah. I thought Thursdays is late enough in the week. Usually, sometimes Apple releases the bad news late on a Friday, but there's just been so much news now, like on late Thursday afternoons, mostly because Mark Gurman leaks it or whatever. But after all the Apple Intelligence and Siri delays that we had talked about in last week's episode, John Gruber's article about something rotten in Cupertino, apparently Gurman scooped this before any, kind of official anything, which I don't think Apple hasn't made any official announcement, right? Or did they?
They have made I believe they made an internal announcement after this leaked. I don't know if they've actually made an official announcement.
Right, exactly. So what happened was apparently Mike Rockwell, who was in charge of Apple Vision Pro, is now going to be moved to take over Siri and the Apple Intelligence features that have been delayed, and since we don't know when they're going to come out. And Mike Rockwell will report directly to Craig Federighi, who's over software, VP, and John Giannandrea, who was actually like on stage on John Gruber's talk show after Dub last year talking about Apple Intelligence and all of that. John Giannandrea is going to be moved out of the Siri and Apple Intelligence team. I forget, did they say where he might be going?
I think he's still the head of their machine, like AI and machine learning. He's just not going to have the Siri part of it.
Gotcha.
Right? So image playgrounds, Genmoji, whatever else there might be, like
writing tools.
Like, no, but really, I think maybe the first thing I think, like when he came in, there was like talk that, okay, well, Apple's building a search engine, right, for Siri or whatever. But I don't, because he spent a lot of time at Google. Like, he's obviously a very serious person. It's just, it seems like Siri got kind of caught in the middle between this AI stuff and the software stuff. And obviously it has not worked out at all.
So it's a big move. I think one of the other notable changes is John Giannandrea, correct me if I'm wrong. Giannandrea.
There you go.
He had reported directly to Tim Cook in the role he was over Siri. Isn't that correct?
Well, again, his role is like head of, artificial intelligence and machine learning and stuff. Yeah.
Right. But now that Mike Rockwell is coming from Apple Vision Pro over onto the voice assistant team, he's going to be reporting to Craig Federighi, which it seems like Tim Cook and leadership at Apple wants whoever is over that voice assistant team and the failures basically that have arisen. They want Craig Federighi to be like in charge of that. So I think it's an interesting change. And
yeah, I just sent you a picture from iJustine's interview because John Giannandrea was one of the people who was on stage with Tim Cook and Craig Federighi talking about. This was at WWDC, but this particular interview was in the Steve Jobs Theater, like shortly after the keynote, and it was mostly just talking about the developments and what was going on. It was actually a very weird interview. We won't get into that, but that's John Giannandrea in the middle there. Right.
I imagine he won't be on stage on any events this year at WWDC.
That's tough because again, even Gurman's reporting, like he didn't get fired and he didn't get like moved off of the machine learning, the Apple Intelligence like stuff. It is specifically the product of Siri is moving over with Mike Rockwell. And again, Mike Rockwell's chops is not like software development necessarily. He's like a deliver guy. He's the guy that will get this thing across the finish line. Like when it comes to the Vision Pro, he didn't design the Vision Pro, right? I think Johnny Ive designed the Vision Pro. I mean, it certainly looks like Johnny Ive designed the Vision Pro, but Mike Rockwell's job was keep all of the parts moving that need to be, like going forward so that this thing actually ships. Now, whether it should have shipped or not, we can argue about that, but I don't know that was a decision that Mike Rockwell made. Or maybe it was. It's like, we have to ship this thing because we can't ship the next version of this thing until we ship this thing. So,
right. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm curious the Apple Intelligence story at WW this year, because obviously that was a huge portion of it last year. That's when it was introduced and they showed off everything. I wonder if they will reiterate the semantic index and personalized Siri features again, or if it's just going to be like a mum about that. What do you think? Do you think they'll talk about it directly, or?
I don't know. I mean, I had an entire briefing on the semantic index.
Wow.
Like seriously, and the private cloud compute. Like there was a whole briefing just on that aspect of it, and that is, I think that they have to keep talking about that, even if it's far off. Now, I hope that they learned that maybe they shouldn't try demoing it if it's not something that's going to be shipping anytime soon.
But in your briefing, there was no demo, right, of the semantic index?
No, there was definitely not a demo. But to be fair, at that point, what that briefing was about is like, here's how the technology of this works, right? We are creating an index of all of these different things so that that there's this, you give this photograph over here of you're in a coffee shop, so it's tagged as coffee, and then you have like this email with your coffee order, so it's like tagged as coffee. And so when you ask Siri a question about coffee, it automatically pulls all those things together and figures out which one of these things is relevant to your question. So
right. Well, I'm curious. Obviously, Apple Intelligence, I guess they'll talk about because there are still features out there, and you have visual intelligence, and maybe they'll add stuff to that. But I'm curious what they'll talk about Siri specifically. If they'll just, we'll see. I'm sure Mark Gurman will have some kind of leak before WW too. So, because he always does.
That's probably true.
iOS 18.4 is coming next week, and there's some feature changes I'm going to list in a second. But Apple had a whole newsroom article talking about update coming to AirPods Max, the USB-C version specifically, which is going to bring lossless audio and ultra-low latency. Along with this announcement, they now started selling a $40 USB-C to 1/8-inch headphone jack, which you can now get as well. But supposedly this update is going to unlock 24-bit, 48 kilohertz lossless audio. And what I'm curious about, like when I edit video, a lot of times I just use the built-in speakers on my studio display because using AirPods or any kind of headphones, there's either latency or weirdness when you like just try to play something in Final Cut. But they're saying there's ultra-low latency audio with this update to AirPods Max. Curious how that's going to be. I never got the USB-C versions of these because the chip is the same. Like aside from the USB-C port, it's literally the same headphones. It's still using the H1 chip instead of the H2. And so these lossless features, it's interesting that they're just coming to the USB-C version because, again, same chip as the first version. I don't know why Lightning couldn't, but anyway.
Well, I imagine it has something to do with the digital audio converter that's associated with the USB-C port. Like,
right.
I'm sure that's got to be part of it because, and also I don't know, I imagine that cable probably has some kind of controller in it to handle that as opposed to just, right, because you have to be able to tell it I'm sending data versus sending power, and maybe just the Lightning version. Either A, it just wasn't worth it because we're no longer selling this product, right? Or B, but I think also
like the ultra low latency, that's specifically for wireless, which it's the same.
I mean, and that's true for gamers. That's an important thing. I mean, I don't know, like, well, no, but I mean, like, it is weird. So first of all, there's no new hardware here. This is just like a software update coming to the ones that already exist, or a firmware update. I'm not exactly clear on how that's working, but it is such an interesting thing that this is a feature that almost no one will be able to take advantage of.
No, but no, we'll see.
And the people who can did not buy AirPods Max.
Correct. I posted this on social media. I actually got a pair of Sony XM5s recently because they were on sale on Amazon, and I was like, I want to see what all the hype is about. I've never tried a Sony over-the-ear headphones. I didn't have XM3s or 4s or anything, so trying it, I do like it. There's definitely a difference in build quality, which being plastic, they're lighter than the AirPods Max, and I think a little more comfortable, especially over long periods. But I'll do a full video. But you have the XM4s?
No, I have XM4s and 5s. I just made the comment that, I mean, the XM5s are improved in a couple ways, except for that they made the case bigger. Right. So the XM4s are actually the ideal travel headphones because the case is very small. My favorite are my Bowers and Wilkins, but even that case is a little bit bigger than those Sonys. But the people who care about lossless audio are buying, like, you know, Hi-Fi Man or Focal Utopia or stuff like that. They're not buying, you know, AirPods Max.
No, they're not. So iOS 18.4, the release candidate is out right now. Public version should be coming out next week. I'll have a video on it. Stay tuned for that. But there are some updates, big-ish features. Visual intelligence will be coming to the iPhone 15 Pro. So if you didn't upgrade to the 16 but you want to try it, you'll be able to map it to the action button and use a Control Center shortcut if you want to be able to access it that way. Ambient music gets added into the Control Center. Quick access for that. The mail categories comes to iPad and Mac. And there's a bunch of other things like Apple Podcasts app gets new widgets. Prioritize notifications is a new feature where you can actually say what apps you want to prioritize notifications from on the lock screen. New emojis, Apple News plus food and those recipes, which we've talked about on previous episodes. And the Apple Vision Pro app, where you can actually easier guest mode, starting that from your iPhone. And also you can like send media, like basically add video or different things to your Apple Vision Pro from your iPhone. So you don't have to put the Vision Pro on just to like add something to your up next. So that's cool. Do you use the Mail? Well, you use Spark, right? You don't really use Apple Mail anymore.
I use Spark. I only use Apple Mail. This was funny because I had to use it this week for you, Stephen.
For me.
Because I switched my personal email, not my personal, let's call it my workish email.
Right.
From Outlook to Gmail. And you cannot import an archive of emails into Gmail. It's just like not possible. You cannot put them up on Gmail's server.
Interesting.
To have them indexed. So they all live in, actually, I moved them all to iCloud, and they are synced all into, and so in the Mail app, I have a one archive folder of basically every single email back to like 2003 or something like that. Yeah, it's amazing. And so you had asked me a question about WWDC, and I knew which email address it came to, but since that email address is no longer Outlook, I couldn't search in that, so I pulled open the Mail app. So really all I ever use it for is cold storage, that Mail app.
That is fascinating. Okay. I actually use the default Mail app everywhere. I like it. except for that the snooze feature is not really a snooze feature. But
which is why one of the reasons I don't use it, because it's so good in Spark.
Spark is great. It is one of the reasons I use SaneBox, because I basically have snooze features that way. But anyway, I don't use the categories anywhere. I don't like the categories in Mail.
No.
I don't. Yeah. No.
My wife almost made me buy her a new phone when the update happened, and that happened to her thing. She just was so repulsed by the idea that suddenly her inbox looked so different. She's like, can I have my old phone back? Can I please get rid of it? I'm like, actually, I could just turn off this feature.
Just turn it off. Yeah, just turn it off.
She's like, okay, fine. But if it ever comes back, I'm getting a new phone.
I'm calling it. All right, so that's the Apple news. We might get to some of the rumors later if we have time, but OpenAI and ChatGPT has some news. They released better image creation using ChatGPT 4.0 model. And so if you were on X or some of the other social media platforms, there was thousands of Studio Ghibli. Is it Ghibli or Ghibli?
I think it's Ghibli, but I don't know. I'm not a...
Yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize to everyone for however I mispronounced it. But there were a bunch of anime-esque imagery that people were creating with the ChatGPT 4.0 images. So there was that, and there's also some funding news. But I did want to show you. I generated an image of myself here, or I gave it a picture of myself to make into anime. And so you can judge, Jason, whether or not this is good. This will be the chapter artwork too, so you can see. So here's the picture I gave it, right? See that?
Mm-hmm.
And here's the anime version.
Okay.
Not bad. I feel like it.
I don't watch enough anime to tell if that is what anime should look like, but it's what I imagine you would look like in one of those cartoons.
Yeah, I feel like the picture I gave it did pretty good. So anyway, people were doing this with all kinds of stuff.
If you were a character in a Pokemon movie, that's what you would look like.
Yeah, I'm down for that.
Okay.
I'm down for that.
Now wait, I thought so do you pay for ChatGPT?
ChatGPT Plus, yeah.
You do pay for it. Okay. Because I was I didn't think you did. And I just remembered that they're saying it was, which is not surprising because of how overrun X was by these images. Sam Altman posted hey, this was a little more popular than we expected, which by the way is literally their playbook. Hype a new thing, grossly underestimate how popular it will be, and then have to throttle it back for people. You're just faking us out every time. You're just doing the same thing. You know exactly what's going to happen. You just want to keep running that same play over and over again. So I did, but I didn't. It's they're not going to roll it out to the free tier for, they said, a while.
Right. Yeah, for a while. But it is pretty cool. People were doing famous events and making them anime, which was interesting. But anyway, the other news is they're about to close another huge funding round. Is this a record-breaking round, or their record, or all funding rounds?
This would be the largest round ever, because their previous round, which was something 6 point something, was the largest funding round at the time, and that was $6 or $7 billion, and this is obviously more. $40 billion is obviously a lot more, and it will value the company at $300 billion, which is just bananas. But they need that $40 billion because NVIDIA GPUs are just not getting any cheaper.
What's wild, though, they are still not profitable, correct?
Well, right. If you have to raise $40 billion to pay for stuff, it's because you aren't making that money from customers. But seriously, that $40 billion is not because they're going to hire a bunch of engineers. It's not because they're looking for software coders. It is to pay for electricity and for GPUs. Literally, that's what the money's for.
Here's what I will say, though. ChatGPT, it's a pretty great product. And I was thinking, I did a video recently about the 35 apps I install on a new Mac when I start over from scratch. And I realized ChatGPT is pretty key, and I do use it all the time. And one of the things, I did a video for Riverside recently, and it was the 10 learnings from Diary of a CEO podcast or whatever. And I was okay, this might take a while. I have to watch a bunch of videos. And then I was now wait a minute. I could probably do this another way.
Way.
So I basically found a bunch of videos that talked about the strategies the podcast uses to grow. I downloaded those videos. I made them into MP3s. I transcribed them all. I gave it all those transcriptions to ChatGPT and basically said, what are 10 things that you could learn from this?
Yeah.
And phrase it with some supporting material, whatever. And I was it blew my mind that something that would have been an all-day process of pulling this, finding where these clips are, what is useful, what's duplicate. ChatGPT did it in a few minutes, and I was this is pretty great.
It is amazing. I mean, we're going to talk about something in a minute that I was writing about, and I had a question that I knew the bottom line answer. It's kind of like when you're in high school and you're like, you got the answer right, but you didn't show your work. I needed to I needed the show your work part. I knew I knew the answer, but I didn't know why. So I just asked it a question, and it gave me like, I don't know, 10 pages of charts. Like, here's this feature, here's this product, this one, here's the difference between them. Like, and it was it's like, good. That's what I needed, that information so I could explain the why. So it was very good.
And the deep research stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, I've only used it a couple times. It is very good. It is very good. But so that's ChatGPT. Now, there's a couple things I'm gonna need you to tell me about, Jason. One, I saw in the ether that there was this Meta tell-all book. I don't know much about it. So if you could, who wrote this book, and like, what's it about? Yeah,
we'll do the quick version because this is the most important thing you need to know about this book is that if Meta hadn't thrown a fit, you would have never known about this book, right? Most people were not going to read this book, and it is now a bestseller because Meta wanted to make it so you could never hear about it. The book's called Careless People. It's written by Sarah Wynne Williams, who's a former director of global policy, and it essentially just details her time working. You know, her job was essentially to make connections between Meta's executives and like heads of state, for example. So the beginning of the book tells the story of they're at like a state dinner somewhere kind of thing. Like, and so it is a very behind the scenes book, and Meta actually filed an arbitration. I was going to say they sued, but they filed an arbitration case to stop her from being able to promote the book because apparently she signed a non-disparagement agreement when she left as part of her severance agreement. And the crazy thing about this is like most people would have never paid any attention to this book, except for they call it the Streisand effect, right? Where Barbara Streisand, there was pictures of her house on the internet and she threw a fit about it. And so no one was ever going to see the pictures on the internet until she threw a fit about it. And then never one saw the pictures of her house. That's where that comes from. It's the same kind of thing here. This book, I have no idea how much of it is true. The problem for Meta is it doesn't matter because it just confirms all the things we think are true, right? That these people have very, very thin skin.
I see.
And are greedy and like are pursuing greed at the
it's like a rabbits are furry stuff. Right. Yeah, okay.
But the consequence of that, the reason that it's so interesting is that the consequence of those things are not good. When you look around the world at the different places, one of the things they talk about is the genocide, was it in Rwanda? In the how when Facebook went into that country, it enabled like the rebels to like. It's just there's all of these different things that are just not great, and so that's the book. It's actually a very good read.
Oh, interesting.
And though it's funny that the author is like my takeaway from this. I did write about it. What you wanted Meta was to make sure no one ever read it, so you made it so the author couldn't promote it. So now the author is sitting at home cashing checks because it's an international bestseller because of what you did. It's like, and they totally misunderstood the incentives. Meta's incentive was to refute anything that wasn't true and try to get you to disbelieve it. And the author's like, just buy the book and decide for yourself because if you buy it, I get paid, right? Like it's like there's such a misalignment of those. She doesn't have to argue with you about what's true. Right. And so now she's being subpoenaed before Congress to talk about the contents of the book. And anyway,
was there anything like, because you have it, was there anything like incredibly shocking that you would have learned behind the scenes at Meta that you didn't expect or?
I don't know that there was anything shocking because shocking would be like something that you totally did not expect. Right. The book definitely makes Sheryl Sandberg look really bad. And Sheryl Sandberg was known, she came from Google and went to Facebook, was the chief operating officer, and is largely credited with basically making that a company because she was the adult supervision kind of thing. Right. Similar to how Eric Schmidt was at Google when he became CEO. Right. And obviously Sheryl Sandberg wasn't the CEO, but her and Mark Zuckerberg worked very closely together. And it just makes her look, her big thing was sort of this, she wrote the feminist work manifesto, lean in kind of thing. And this book makes it seem as though like, no, that's not the real Sheryl Sandberg. She's just like you might have expected from a very opportunistic, greedy, career-oriented, climb over the top of the dead bodies you leave in your wake kind of a person. So that was a little bit like, but again, I mean, it and I should be clear to say this book is being compared to previous whistleblowers like Frances Haugen, who really like, blew the whistle on Facebook a couple years ago and released all this stuff about how Facebook was targeting young, especially girls to get them addicted to Instagram. That's like a super brief summary of it.
Right.
She had receipts. Like she literally had thousands of documents that probably she shouldn't have had, but as a whistleblower, she got them released into the public. This book doesn't have any receipts. So it's hard to know what in here is a fable and what if it's actually true.
I see.
But it basically all lines up with what you think is probably true.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Well, thank you. I'm probably.
It is a good read, though.
It is a good read?
I recommend it. It's a.
Really?
I mean, here's what you'll like this, Stephen. It's the. I don't know why I said that, and now you're going to be like either really happy or very offended. But the chapters of this book are all like maybe 7 to 8 pages long. 4 to 8 pages long. So it's written is like stories. They're little snippet stories of different things. It's not like reading a narrative that starts on page 1 and ends on page 300.
Right.
It's like all of these different things. So
Okay, I like that kind of format. Okay,
there you go.
Well, maybe I will read it. We'll see.
Good stuff.
Now, one other story I need you to tell me about. I know this was big in the news, where basically some message was sent by. Well, why don't you tell me what happened, and then we can talk about secure messaging apps.
Yeah. Okay. So there's 2 things you should know about this. This is an enormous story, even though like probably our audience is like, I don't know, that's like politics. Who cares, right? That's fine.
That's how I feel about it.
So essentially, there's a group of individuals that included the Vice President of the United States, the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State, the National Security Advisor, the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA Director, and the Director of National Intelligence, among other people. And they had a group chat on Signal. And I think it's Mike Waltz, who's the National Security Advisor, added someone to this group chat. And that someone was Jeffrey Goldberg, who's the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic. He just got added to this group chat. No one is sure how or why this happened, but he's added to this group chat, and he kind of ignores it until they start talking about a bombing that's about to happen in Yemen. Okay. And this happened a couple weeks ago. And he tells this the headline of his original story was something like the Secretary of Defense texted me war plans for bombing Yemen or something like that. I
saw that. Yeah, exactly.
And that's literally what happened. And he thought it had to be fake. But he tells the story that he sat in a parking lot at the supermarket waiting and scrolling on X to see if there would be news, reported about this thing that happened. And when it happened, he's like, this is real. Wow. And so he eventually left it. He waited a couple weeks and then he published the story. And then the administration was like, no. He's lying. There was no classified information. So then he went to the administration and he said, we're going to publish these text messages. Is there anything you'd like redacted? And so they published them. They published that. There's one thing that was redacted, which was a message that included a name of somebody, the CIA person that was in there. So anyway, they published them all, and it's kind of bananas because I don't think I wrote an article about this talking about the different types of encryption, right? And my thing is like I don't really know much about what goes into war planning, but I assume that there's already like a communications infrastructure for this that's already a solved problem, right? I think they have this figured out. There are secure telephone and video systems. They have these things called SCIFs. Do you know what a SCIF is?
I've heard that name.
It's basically a hardened closet that you can go into and no one can listen to or see. It's a secure compartmented information facility. Anyway, they have all these things, and these guys are just using Signal on their iPhones to text each other about bombing this terrorist in Yemen. And so then there's a lot of political questions like, I think maybe you shouldn't be doing this. We're going to set that apart.
Well,
go ahead.
I just want to say one thing. Because we're talking about security across different messaging apps. Any security, no matter what a company like Apple builds into it or a Signal that promises, like the human element is still the weakest link.
Yes.
Because I have a relative who uses iMessage, which is like end-to-end encrypted. Apple had like a whole article about how like it's prepared for quantum computing and withstanding the hacks.
Post-quantum computing, yep.
And this person does not have a passcode on their iPhone. So it doesn't matter how much encryption is between those blue bubbles if you could just literally press the home button because his button still is.
Well, and I think technically if you don't have a passcode on your device, it's not encrypted.
Oh, for real?
I think that's true. I think because the point of putting in the passcode is you're decrypting your device.
Your device, but I feel like the messages are still end-to-end encrypted.
Ooh, I don't know.
Because I don't think you can turn that. Yeah, we'll have to make. If anybody has information on that, I'd be curious. But again, like the human element is still the weak link. Like,
yes. My last paragraph was, it's worth mentioning, however, that it does not matter how private or secure an encryption is on a messaging platform. If you include someone in a group chat and send a message to the group, they're going to be able to read the message, right? The problem here has nothing to do with encryption, everything to do with human error. Most of these apps offer a secure form of end-to-end encryption for consumers, but there's no guarantee your messages will stay secret if you text them to a journalist.
How did this article do? Because this was.
I just published it this morning.
Oh, you just published it.
So,
I'm curious.
yes.
This is amazing. So, we'll link Jason's article, but basically talking about Signal, WhatsApp, and iMessage. And for like.
Well, let me say one thing. The reason this is a big deal is, what if the person who'd been added to this group chat was not the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, who is a pretty serious person, who waited 2 weeks before publishing anything, did not reveal the contents until the administration was like, oh, he's either lying or none of this was classified. And he said, okay, well, then we're going to publish him. And they didn't ask to have anything redacted, which is actually an interesting thing. You can't, first of all, he's a journalist and you texted the stuff to him. So he's not obligated to keep it a secret, but he did anyway. Right. And you can't also say none of it was classified and then be mad at him if he publishes it, because you just said it wasn't classified. Like, which is it? But anyway, what if that person hadn't been that? What if that person was just a rando who's like, I see an opportunity to sell these secrets to the highest bidder. Let me get on X and find a Houthi rebel and see what I can do. Like, that's the problem. Like, that's the problem, yeah. They got lucky that it's actually dumb luck that you sent them to a journalist and now that's all public, but also you sent them to someone who apparently is more careful with national secrets than the people in the text message chain.
This is first, I would think, I don't know, again, the internal workings of administrations and politics, but I would think that there would be some kind of proprietary communication, like text communication, like built into whatever, like the highest offices of the United States government. Like, I feel like it would not be Signal or Telegram, like it would be White House Messenger or something like.
I think the general thing is this type of stuff's not supposed to be happening on an iPhone, period. Right? This is the stuff that you go into a secure room with a secure video conferencing system, and you message all the people, and it's like they have their own secure version of Zoom, right? Like where they can it's all encrypted end to end, and not only that, but like the lines are hard. Like, it's just a different type of thing. It is not a consumer product that you can download for free on your iPhone. I think, and again, I'm not like, I don't care about I don't think that anyone questions the mission that they were doing, right? Like that part of it is not really up for debate necessarily. It's just you would assume that the people in these positions would be tech savvy enough to A, know that this is probably a bad idea, and B, realize when someone has entered the chat and you don't know who they are.
I guess, if there's a bunch of people in a chat, and again, everybody's so busy, like just not taking the time to look and like pay attention. But
which is why you don't send the time you're going to drop a bomb in a group chat.
Fair. I did just look it up, and I remembered correctly that Obama was actually the first president to use a smartphone while in office. He used a BlackBerry.
His BlackBerry is famous, yes.
The famous BlackBerry, not an iPhone, for security reasons. And, there were smartphones before that. You could have done all the Palms, the older BlackBerries. Like, there were Windows Mobile. Like, presidents could have used smartphones, but it wasn't until 2008 with Obama. And now, of course, Trump has, I assume, an iPhone that he tweets from or whatever. But it's just wild. So you have the article about the messaging services. You got Signal, WhatsApp, and iMessage, and you have like pros and cons of each.
Yeah, I also threw in Telegram and Messenger just because people were going to ask. But the idea is like, which ones are the most secure? The reality is probably iMessage, WhatsApp, and Signal are all pretty equivalent in terms of their security, the encryption. In fact, WhatsApp uses the Signal protocol, right? So the encryption there is good. And Apple uses its own proprietary encryption, and its encryption is probably more hardened. It is probably stronger. The reason I say probably is the difference is Signals is open source, and so it can actually be inspected, and they can actually look at it and make sure that there aren't any bugs or flaws or anything in there, whereas Apple doesn't allow third-party researchers to do that. But Apple does say that its encryption is designed for post-quantum computing. Right. Meaning, if you think about why that matters is, right now, all of this encryption is strong enough to resist what computers are capable of doing today. Because literally what happens is computers just try to guess your key. And if you use a 128 character key, it's going to take them 7 million years to figure it out. But
Right.
a quantum computer could do that in maybe 40 seconds. So Apple is building its encryption to resist it. And the reason that matters is there's no such thing as a quantum computer that can do that at scale today. But what if somebody took your phone and just held on to it for the next 15 years until it was possible? Apple is building its encryption today to resist that possibility in the future. So that part of it is, except for the problem with Apple's encryption is, as soon as you text somebody on Android, there's no encryption. Zero. Zip, zilch.
No, I thought there was a recent update where RCS got end-to-end encryption.
I don't think if you're sending it to Android that's true. Is it?
I thought I saw an article, and Gruber wrote about it. I'll have to find it, but I feel like there was an update recently. I can't find anything.
Well, then I'll update my article. It says I don't think it has started yet. I think they have said that they will eventually.
Okay. Yeah.
But what I will still stand behind my analysis of it, that if you send something in Signal, there's no option for encryption, not encryption, whatever. If you send something in iMessage, there are multiple levels of how that message might be delivered. In the worst case scenario, it falls back to SMS. So you could think you are sending something that is end-to-end encrypted, but if you were sending it to an Android device that doesn't support RCS, which is actually a thing that exists in the world, right? Then it would just fall back to an SMS. And so I will stand by the fact that like it is a little bit more complicated. In the best case scenario, Apple's is the most secure, but it also has the worst failure option.
Right.
And so, but
which is like nothing.
Yeah, Facebook is adding it to its Messenger app. WhatsApp is also end-to-end encrypted with the Signal protocol. The downside to WhatsApp, so the benefit of WhatsApp is it's the best for group messaging. The downside of it is that
it looks terrible.
Well, whatever. The real downside of it is that Meta collects the metadata. No pun intended. So Meta knows who you're messaging. They don't know what the messages are, but they do collect and store different metadata information. It's not entirely clear what they do and they don't collect, but they are able to. Whereas with Signal, it's completely anonymous. You can that's why journalists use Signal, because someone can set up a Signal account and be completely anonymous. You are not required to attach it to any identifying information. Whereas iMessage is obviously attached to your phone number and your iCloud account. WhatsApp is you have to have a phone number attached to it. So there you go. That's the
interesting.
Was that the short enough version?
No, that's good. That's good. Yeah, we'll put Jason's article in. We'll follow up about the RCS end-to-end encryption because I'm curious about that. All right, let's do it. I was going to say lightning round, but Glenn, listener of the show, suggested we should do a Thunderbolt round.
Okay.
Thunderbolt, there's no more lightning anymore.
Okay. A USB-C round.
USB-C round. First of all, John Prosser over at Front Page Tech supposedly has a first look at the iOS 19 redesign, which if you watch his video, there's like a few frames basically where he shows what the updated interface might look like, including the kind of glassy circles from Apple Vision Pro, some of the like frosted overlays, and he says this in the video, if you go to like the Apple Sports app today and you click the little top right menu, or the Apple Invites app that was recently announced, and you'll see kind of these even more rounded corner type overlays in John Prosser's video, which I'll link below. It's Vision OS-esque, and it's the glassy frosted glass or whatever look. I don't know if that feels like a major redesign. I mean, it is a redesign of sorts. And he says at the end of his video that the icons, which many people were thinking on the iPhone and iPad might go to full-on circles like they are on Vision OS. And he says at the end of his video, like, no, the icon shape is staying the same. And then more context, Mark Gurman over at Bloomberg, again, pretty notable leaker, he said, like, nah, all these things that you're seeing right now about iOS 19, like, they're not representative of the actual redesign. So Gurman's saying, like, actually, no. There is a redesign, but it's not what you've been seeing everywhere. So who knows? We'll know in a couple months. But what's your over-under? You think we'll have circle icons on the iPhone?
No, but I do want to nitpick one thing, just to be clear. Mark Gurman is not a leaker. Mark Gurman is a journalist who has very good sources, many of whom are leakers. Right? There's a distinction there, right? Mark Gurman doesn't have firsthand information about any of this that he is leaking. He is just reporting on what people, for whatever reason, think that they should be telling him. Just to be clear.
I wanted to ask you this because I didn't talk about this earlier when we mentioned the whole Siri shakeup with Giannandrea, but Mark Gurman appears to have had either a transcript or a recording of the internal meeting with the Siri team at Apple where they talked about things aren't going so well. So to have a transcript or a recording of that meeting means someone inside Apple recorded it and sent it to Gurman. And no one else has this information. Gurman is singular in that he reports on this stuff and no one else has firsthand contacts and information. It also appears that Gurman has multiple people inside. Like I imagine to have as much information as he does, he would have to have people on the hardware side and the software side, because even within Apple, a lot of the time those teams don't communicate, because of secrecy and things like that. So to have multiple people inside Apple feeding information, also even recordings and or transcripts of internal meetings, which seems, at least to me, very risky, as if I was an employee of Apple and wanted to keep my job. In your opinion as a journalist, why would someone do that? Why is someone giving Mark Gurman this information? Unless, if they're a personal friend, I get it. To have that many personal friends inside seems like unlikely. But like, what is the motivation of the people inside Apple who are working on this stuff, who I would think want to make a great thing and then show it to the world at the event, the Apple event? But why are they sending this stuff to Gurman?
Well, I mean, there's usually a couple of reasons why that could happen. One, sometimes people will leak information because they think that something is bad or wrong. So the perfect example of this would be the UK sending that letter to Apple requiring them to add a back door. So that was either someone from Apple leaked that because they're like, we need to get this out there, but we can't say it on the record because it's illegal. Or somebody in the UK government who knew about it and was like, this is a bad idea. So that's one type of a situation where that happens. I also think that there are just people who are like, Gurman's the most well-known one, and I kind of want to have a little bit of juice with Gurman, and so I'm going to just send this stuff. I think that it is sometimes as simple as the human need to be like, I know a thing, and now I'm cool because I give you a thing, and then I get to see it in writing. Like, I feel like that's probably part of it. The other option is that Gurman and Tim Cook just have breakfast every other day, and he's like, I need this out there.
I don't know.
Because you said he might have multiple sources. I'm like, or he just has one. He has one very well-placed source. No, that's not what's happening, I promise.
No. It's weird. I'm just curious the motivation of these people inside Apple wanting to get, because even if you get juice with Mark Gurman, for what? When you leave Apple, is he going to hire you on the technology team for Bloomberg? I don't think so.
But there is that this is true. Like, there's something about, I know a thing no one else knows, and it's going to just feel so good to tell somebody who could tell everybody. I don't know. There's just a thing there.
Yes. I mean, I don't know. It seems weird, but
I agree. I think it I have had people reach out to me with stuff. And here's the other thing for Gurman. I've had people who have reached out to me, not nearly on this scale and not nearly as exciting, just random things. But if I can't find some way of confirming that, I can't even, like, there's nothing, that's useless to me. So if a random person just emails me like, did you know that Tim Cook's about to retire? Like, that's a stock market moving event. You can't just publish that, right? You can't.
Yeah,
so you have to have some kind of confirmation. The same thing would have to be true. So when you have a recording of a meeting, as long as he can confirm that those voices you hear are actually the voices that they are purported to be, that's pretty good confirmation. So.
Right. Just wild. Curious if he did that with a voice memo on the iPhone. Was he wearing an AI
wire? Somebody's wearing a wire.
So strange. And I'm curious if Apple talks about it internally and be like, do you find the mole?
I mean, there are people who have this, like Alex Heath has this same kind of connection at Meta, right? He has so many, he has published multiple all hands meetings from Meta, and Casey Newton, the same kind of thing, has these same kinds
Chris
of
Welch with Sonos.
Yes, I think he's actually potentially on staff at Sonos. I'm kidding. I'm not saying that to badmouth him at all. I'm just saying he is very well placed there. Tom Warren at Microsoft, those kinds of things. There are plenty of. They all work at The Verge, basically just The Verge.
And Gurman at Bloomberg.
And Gurman, right? Yep.
All right, this Thunderbolt round, it was not fast, but okay. Well,
I'm sorry.
No, my fault. We'll jam through these things. Supposedly, one of the rumors of the iPhone 17 is that we'll finally get to 8K video, which we've had 4K video for, I think, since like the iPhone 6S. Like, it's been a long time. So maybe 8K video. Cool.
Yeah, this is the lossless audio of the cameras on the iPhone.
But if you have 8K video with 2 lenses, then maybe you could do 4K spatial video for Apple Vision Pro. You know what I'm saying?
Sure, but those, maybe we'll see. I don't know. I think, I think I'm surprised this isn't what you said. The biggest benefit of 8K video is that you can shoot it and then you can like crop it in.
Crop it in, yeah. That's a huge benefit for sure. And also, Apple Watch. You sent this to me as well. That this is from Bloomberg, so Gurman. That Apple might be working at AI features in the Apple Watch utilizing cameras, which you have said in the past, to your credit, put a camera in the thing.
Well, I have said in the past that the Apple Watch is the ideal AI device.
Right.
Put a camera in it or not. I just want credit for having said when those stupid Humane AI pins and that stupid R1, whatever you put on your desk, that orange thing, yep. When those things came out, I'm like, no one wants to wear that or carry it around. You're already wearing the ideal AI device, right?
Yes.
It's not a joke when I say that I turn off the listening to Siri on every device except for my watch. Because it's the only one I ever want to respond to anything, right? Like it's just, so yeah.
I get it. All right, and then finally for the Thunderbolt round, delete your 23andMe data if you haven't yet. 23andMe went bankrupt. They're being bought out. And I actually did 23andMe a number of years ago for me and one of my kids and my wife for various reasons. And I was like, okay, I'm going to delete my stuff. So you can go in and like download your information in like PDF format, which I did. And then I told them to hopefully delete everything. But yeah, it's one of the things about some of these startups and DNA and information like that. But
yeah, no, I've never done that. There was a great, I think it must have been on Threads from Joanna Stern. She's like, the things that we've learned this week, like don't text war plans to journalists. Don't give your DNA information to a company that is one, bad quarter away from a yard sale. Like all of these things. Like
yard sale with your DNA.
Exactly, because they're going to sell off all of the assets, and one of those assets is a huge database full of all of this DNA information, and you can just imagine how appealing that's going to be to XAI or OpenAI or one of those companies. And I think that the current CEO, what is her first name? Anne, I think is her first name, wants to buy it. And in fact, she offered to buy it. But this is a company that at one point was worth $2 or $3 billion and is now worth something like $25 million. Like, bad deal.
Right. That's wild. Okay, so we have a little time. That was the Thunderbolt round. And so for our personal tech, this is 100% inspired by the Accidental Tech Podcast. If you subscribe to their show and support them, they had a bonus episode recently about their websites. And Casey,
I have not listened yet.
You haven't listened to it yet?
Not that one.
There is a moment where John Siracusa says a bunch of words in a row. And he says in this bonus episode how his work was basically as a web developer for many years. Like that was his life. And it's about at the hour mark, if you listen to that episode of ATP, it's the bonus episode. But he like rattles off a bunch of words. And it was like when you see in movies or shows when like a superhero who's in their like plain clothes does something that might give away that they're a superhero. Like Clark Kent runs a little too fast or like throws a bowling ball a little too hard. And it was like one of those moments where like Syracuse just broke for a second. It's like, wait a minute, this guy, he's a superhero. And it just, I listened to it like several times. So I was like, it was just amazing. Because I was actually listening at like 1.5 speed, which I don't normally do, but I had a lot of episodes to get through. And at 1.5 speed, it was like almost unintelligible. And I was like, oh wait, I need to go back. And it was fun to hear.
It was almost unintelligible. That's funny.
For me anyway. But I thought it would be interesting to talk about our website journey. You know, you have a website, a personal website, aside from where you write at Inc. I have a personal website. And so eventually I want to get to like, what are they on now, which is probably not as exciting. But I was curious if you could recall back to like your first or oldest websites for yourself. And what did you build them on, or what might have, like what kind of content did you post? And I'll give you some time to think about it because I'll share a couple things. I think the first time I ever had a website, it was iWeb, because I was a .Mac subscriber. I paid for .Mac, which was like $100 a year. That's where I got my first Apple email address, which is still my Apple ID today. And I just searched, and for some reason, Apple still has an iWeb page on their website with a video. This video is just living here, showing you how to use iWeb. I did not expect this to exist, and I'm so happy it does. And now it is documented forever because it's in this episode. But I think iWeb was probably the first time, because iWeb was an application on the Mac, and if you paid for a .Mac account, they would basically let you build a website in iWeb, the app, hit publish, and it would be publicly available. Like you couldn't really connect like third-party domains, and it wasn't like a full-on hosted website where you had FTP access or whatever. But it was pretty cool. Like you could build your own website, publish it from your Mac, and it was on the internet, at least on .Mac or whatever. So I think iWeb was probably my very first one. I can't remember exactly what I put on it, but that was the first. And then for many years after that, basically end of college and in my first full-time job, I remember my very first job interview. I was just personally starting to learn about web and how to make a website. And in the interview, I was asked, hey, can you make us a website in addition to all these other things that you're going to do? And I was like, yeah, no problem. And at that moment, I had never published a website personally, besides my iWeb web. But I was confident I was pretty close to being able to do it, and so I could do it. And so those early years of me figuring it out, I'm going to show that I'm not showing this for anyone to like sign up or look this up. But I remember I bought a hosting account, shared hosting on Website Source, which I didn't even know what it was, Website Source. And I didn't really know what to do with it or how to use it. It really took me a while to figure out, like, what do I do with this?
Yeah.
And I remember I used the app, which is still around. It's still a good app, CyberDuck, which was a free app for FTP access to upload files. But that was my first web hosting. And then for many years, I built websites using this application, which is still available, which you can still use today, and I'm sure it's probably really good right now, but RapidWeaver. And RapidWeaver was like the Mac user's simplified Dreamweaver. I mean, it was nothing like Dreamweaver, but obviously the name was meant to evoke Dreamweaver as an idea. But I used RapidWeaver for many years to build many websites. I eventually started making websites for like other people, and they would pay me to do it. And I loved RapidWeaver. And basically RapidWeaver was you design it on your Mac in this application, this native application. It felt like other Mac apps. It was familiar. And then you would publish it. You can hit publish, and it would send it to whatever your hosting provider is. I remember it took me weeks to figure out what directory in the web host I was supposed to be publishing to so this website was actually live on the internet. What is a domain, and how do I connect it to the web host? Like, It was a complicated world back when I was doing it. But I did it. I built many websites on that, and I had a personal website where I did start blogging and things like that, and it was really fun. After RapidWeaver, so many other services came out where this whole process was just made easier. WordPress obviously being the forefront. I had tried WordPress, I think, briefly, and just wasn't about it. I wasn't crazy about the back-end UI. I didn't like the idea of constantly having to update plugins or whatever. And so I think after my RapidWeaver days, pretty shortly after, I found Squarespace. And I mean, this was before they like advertised literally everywhere. This was before their Super Bowl ad. I think I probably heard them from like Back to Work with Merlin Mann and Dan Benjamin for the first time. And once I started creating Squarespace websites, like it was over. Like I was off to the races. I was like, this is everything I needed to. I'm totally good. I need nothing else. And if you go to my personal website today, which is beard.fm, it is built on Squarespace. And I actually have some of my earliest videos on my YouTube channel is about Squarespace because you can do a lot with it. Like you can host a podcast on Squarespace and you can do a blog. You can even now do online courses and membership areas and all kinds of stuff. And I really love Squarespace for how easy it is, and I never have to think about it. And that's really the goal, like because I don't update my website a lot, but when I do post something, I want to just not have to think about it. I'm happy enough with the design. Look, Primary Technologies right here on the homepage.
Nice.
The latest episode, boom, right there. And so Squarespace was the answer and is still the answer for me today. and I really like it. So I built so many Squarespace websites. I'm trying to find this. I'll try to find it, and then I'll show it after you. But I am on Squarespace's website as a Squarespace expert. They gave me that little title, I guess, because I have so many Squarespace websites behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So I'm proud of that. But anyway, I don't know. What can you tell us, Jason, of your website history and or whatever you want to say about it?
Well, I mean, I'm just going to start by saying that I am a member of their Circle Gold because I have built so many websites.
Okay, so
for people.
the same there.
Lots and lots and lots. But okay, there's a 0% chance I'm going to be able to get the chronology of all of this.
No, it's fine.
Because
That's fine.
I know I've used iWeb and I've built plenty of several websites on iWeb, but I couldn't even tell you what they were for or what the deal is anymore. But that was not the first time. I used Microsoft Office Front Page, which was an HTML editor, like late 90s ish,
Sure.
right? And it was literally editing HTML, and same kind of thing, figuring out where you put this folder of files to put somewhere, that kind of thing. I was going back, and I know that one of my first blogs was on TypePad, and it still exists. It's still there.
It's still there. Nice.
Very exciting because I was running a photography business, and if you're a photographer, you have to have somewhere to publish your work, and it's like kind of a mind trip here to be looking at this.
Seeing all this old stuff.
I did at one point, I don't know if it was before or after that, so I can't tell you, but I had on Blogger, same thing,
Yeah.
and that one apparently redirects to what would have at one point been a Squarespace site that I do not think exists anymore. But I ran a photography business for a long time, and so had multiple websites for that domain is dead. So okay, that's the thing. It's like I don't even know, but I'm actually surprised that this TypePad thing still just exists. I actually am surprised TypePad that URL still resolves, like that it's even still just a thing.
Right.
Like I'm actually shocked that all of this stuff is still anyway. But I eventually settled on Squarespace, and that's where, like, my current website right now, I don't pay any attention to. Essentially, if you just, go to my jasonayton.net, it's just essentially a landing page, and it'll be like, go here to read my articles, go here to sign up for my newsletter. There's like old blog posts that you can get to, my bio, that kind of thing. I just needed to have something out there to have a landing page kind of thing. And it's where I think most people find my email address when they want to contact me, and that's fine. That's great. So, but I have struggled for a long time because I have a newsletter that's on Substack. Should I just be publishing those things on my own? Because Squarespace could handle all that. I could just write them as blog posts, kind of do the strategy model, like what Ben Thompson does, where you publish them as a blog post and then you email them to people.
Right.
I haven't had time to figure all that out because most of the time if I'm writing something, it's going on ink, right? There are a lot of things I'd love to write about that aren't suitable for that, and so I wrestle with that a lot, but I just have not had time to figure it out. Eventually I will have more of a website something. My old photography websites still technically exist, even though many of the domains don't, because you can just find them at Squarespace, right? Like they're still, so in order to see them, which actually is, I love that this is true because there are some of my old like I'm a writer, finding your old blog posts, like there's the most recent one I wrote on one of them was about our oldest daughter when she was in kindergarten, and I get a hysterical phone call. This is the first week of school. It's like the third day of school, and my wife, I was at the grocery store. My wife was like, she didn't get off the bus. And I'm like, that's like the worst thing you can possibly hear. And my wife's hysterical. So we had this really old minivan, and I'm driving that minivan faster than you could ever drive. This should not have been driven this fast to find the bus. And eventually the bus circles back around, and she gets, her explanation was just, I forgot to get off the bus. Like, I'm new to this. I'm a kindergartner. I've only been doing this for 3 days. I was looking at all the pretty houses, and I forgot to get off the bus. I forgot to get off the bus. And I'm so glad that I have these things. You know what I mean? Like that still exists. So thanks for taking me down this memory lane. So.
No, it's good. I actually
one more thing, sorry.
Yeah, no.
Most of the websites I work on today are WordPress, just to be clear. Like, I mean, I don't have I'm not using one for anything personal, but Ink uses WordPress. Everybody uses WordPress. So I'm very, very familiar with WordPress.
Yeah.
It's just more than what most people need when they're doing something.
Yeah. And so I'm going to show this page. This is my my Squarespace expert page.
Whoa.
This was Squarespace partnered with 99 Designs a few years ago, and you could basically like have people just find you on the 99 Designs page. And because I had already made like 100 plus Squarespace websites previously, they automatically put me on there. And so these were just the projects I completed through 99 Designs for like a year. And it was honestly so overwhelming. Like, this could have been my full-time job, but then I realized I couldn't stand making websites for people because they all have like infinite changes and design. So I was like, oh, I actually don't want to do this at all. But I was able to make websites really fast, and people like them for the most part. But this is my my expert page. But I will say I'll put our websites in the show notes as well. I did do this one like blogging experiment. I used Squarespace. I called it People Think, and I wanted to blog every day for a year, just a short like 3-paragraph blogs or whatever. And I did it, and it's hidden somewhere on my main website. But I was proud of that. Writing every day for a year, even just a little bit. There was like one day I forgot, like I missed it, and it went past midnight, and so I wrote about failure because that's a lesson too. But I did. I wrote 365 blog posts, and that was pretty fun. But yeah, it's our personal websites. I will say I looked into Ghost recently because I know a lot of people look at Ghost as a blogging newsletter platform and like paid membership type features. It looks like an awesome platform. There's no import from Squarespace feature, and to rebuild some of the pages that I have on my website, which like one of the pages on my website is every smart home device I have ever bought and reviewed. And like this page is huge. I have like anchor links where you can like jump to different categories of the things. And Squarespace has a cool feature where if you're an Amazon affiliate, you give it your Amazon ID, and then there's just a block you can add and search for an Amazon product, and it'll automatically make it your affiliate link. So like I have this huge page, and like this page alone to recreate in something like Ghost, I saw no way to do that easily or quickly. And I was like, nah, forget it. Yeah. Not doing it.
I should say that we are actually, we've just talked a lot about Squarespace, and it's because we both use it. Yeah. We are actually the only podcast in America that's not sponsored by Squarespace, so we actually mean it. I just want to be clear. We mean it.
It is true.
That said, if you're listening from Squarespace and you'd like to sponsor an episode, we would love to talk to you.
This would have been the sponsor, but we'll talk about you again. We'll talk about you for a month. I mean, that's my website.
I mean, I can scroll through my Squarespace account and you can see how many websites are on there. So
same. And I also like, honestly, personally, it is one of my things. Like, I would love to have at least one Squarespace sponsorship, even just for a single episode, because I've heard it on so many other podcasts.
It's just validation.
Like, I just wanted it, and just for some reason, they have never sponsored any podcast I have done. They didn't do Apple Insider. They haven't done this one. So anyway, maybe one day.
All right.
I want you to talk about the Sigma BF, but we're going to do that for our bonus episode. So no one got ads today because we didn't have a sponsor, but thank you for those of you who support the show through Memberful or Apple Podcasts, because you supported this episode 100%. And if you support the show, you get the bonus episode. Jason has the Sigma BF camera, which I'm very excited to hear about. And so if you want to hear that bonus episode and our entire back catalog of bonus episodes, you can support the show at primarytech.fm, click bonus episodes, or do it directly on Apple Podcasts. I would say do it through primarytech.fm because then you get the chapters. I post it there first or whatever. It's just because Apple Podcasts is limited. Anyway, we love your support. We love your 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Help us get back up to a 5-star rating. And we'd love to have you in the community, social.primarytech.fm, to join the discussions on the episodes. And hundreds, literally over 200 people are there who listen to this show, and it's awesome to have them there. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We're going to go record a bonus episode. See you next week.